Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today, as you see from this, this fire title again, the best fucking title ever. We are doing the 2025-2026 NFC regular season recap. We're gonna do all 16 teams. Hopefully, it's not 50 minutes like it was last video. Sorry for the long time, but yeah, let's get straight into this. Starting with the NFC South, we begin with the New Orleans Saints, going 6-11 this season under the first year of Kellen Moore, who I thought was very good. I mean, he's a good coordinator. He was for a while. He had those great teams with Dak Prescott and the Cowboys in the, I think, early 2020s. I think in 2023 he was the coordinator for Dak Prescott's best year by far. And then he was a Chargers coordinator for a year. Might be getting the years mixed up. Last year, we know from the Philadelphia Eagles, coordinator for them, just fully. The team won the Super Bowl, and the offense was phenomenal in the postseason. And going into the season, New Orleans Saints, it's not going to be the same kind of season it was last year when he was a coordinator with the Eagles. But for what the team had going into the season, I think he really performed well. You're 6-11. At one point, you were 2-10, I believe. And even in those 10 losses, they were close losses. I think they only got blown out once by the Seahawks in like week 3. I think it was like 45-3. If you hear any noise, I have my dogs in my room, so just that's the noise. And he also had two good quarterbacks. Spencer Rattler, when he was starting, obviously he got benched, but when he was starting, he was playing good football. It wasn't like he was a scrub. He showed that, hey, I am a capable quarterback to play in the NFL. But someone who was just better, and probably the right choice for Kellen Moore currently, was Tyler Shutt. Say what you want about the stats, and say what you want about his age. He's like 26 years old as a rookie. Isn't the best thing you want. But I think he was the third best quarterback, maybe second best quarterback for a rookie this season behind Cam Ward. He only had like 10 touchdowns, had like 7 interceptions. Fuck. But whenever I saw him play, he's a good quarterback. He's a starting caliber quarterback. I don't want to say good just because there are actually better quarterbacks than him, but he's a starting quarterback. He gets the job done for the team, especially for what the New Orleans Saints are. It's a rebuilding team. The age may be a problem just because he is going to be 27 next year, and it's only going to be year 2 for him. So I don't want to say you draft a quarterback soon just because you want to give Tyler Shuck some time to figure out, see how he can do for a full season. But if I'm a Saints fan, you knew your team wasn't going to be great. You knew that going into the year, right? You also thought Tyler Shuck was going to be really bad, and he actually played a whole lot better than I expected, maybe more than what Saints fans expected because they wanted Shedeur Sanders. Overall, this was a team that wasn't going to be good. They weren't good. But you have some things you could look forward to next season. A team that doesn't have a lot going forward next season is the Atlanta Falcons. They just fired their head coach. I didn't put that there because the slides were done before the news happened. You just fired Raheem Morris and your GM, which is the right thing to do. They're not there for you. They shouldn't. They're not good, And what really sucks about the Falcons is that your team has so many great players. You have probably the best running back in the league in Bijan Robinson, a really good corner in AJ Terrell. Jesse Bates is still a pretty good safety. And you still got you have Kyle Pitts, who once in a while was good. And then you have Drake London, who, when healthy, is a very, very good wide receiver. And you thought Michael Penix, year 2, his first full season, you could get this on, help the team make it to the playoffs. Because your team, talent-wise, is a playoff team. Problem is, you have so many great players, but you're not a good football team, It's a problem, especially because your coach got fired for it because he wasn't able to get the team prepared week in and week out. You guys are so inconsistent. You guys are kind of like the Carolina Panthers in a way where you guys are just consistently inconsistent. And that really sucks because this was a season that you're like, all right, we finally have the quarterback we thought. We have all the pieces needed to be a good team. And then you're what 4-9 at one point. I think you won 4 straight to end the season. It was a fail of a year, which is crazy because I mean the Saints were 6-11, and that's a good season for them. You're 8-9. You probably should. Realistically, you're supposed to be a 10-17, probably winning the division. But you started out slow. You guys just didn't figure it out, and then Michael Penix tears his ACL again. I think that's his 5th time getting a season-ending injury in his 8 seasons, both in high school, college, and the NFL. That's really sucks. This might be his 3rd time tearing an ACL. That's really bad for him. I feel bad for him. Hopefully he can come back as soon as possible. But now you have Kirk Cousins, and you might have to keep him another year just because you don't know when Michael Penix is going to come back. And Kirk Cousins didn't think he was even going to be on the team this season. So you have a lot to figure out now when it comes to the head coach and the GM and the quarterback. So you're going to need a good offseason for next season to be good. Going on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This team had everything going right for a bit. This team was, I think, 5-2 at one point. Baker Mayfield was the MVP through 7 or 8 weeks, purely just because of the late game heroics, just second half comebacks. He just looked very good. And then I think he got dinged up a little bit of injury, and the team since then just fell off a cliff. They lose and Jigba. They lose Mike Evans for a little bit. They lose Bucky Irving for a little bit. This team was just routed off by injuries. And then Todd Bowles, I think this was his last season. You can't be 8-9 when you had made it to the playoffs. I think 3 or 4 straight seasons, going on to the Tom Brady years and then the Baker Mayfield years. You can't be 8-9, especially in the really bad division like the NFC South is. It's just a season where you just can't be that bad in the second half. I don't understand it. You had like 5 close games that you realistically should have won those 5 games. And you lost, I think, all 5 of those games. And you let fucking Carolina win the division. And that's terrible because Carolina is not a good football team. They're not a good football team. Their defense is really good. They have a good defense. I'll give you that, Carolina fans. Good defense. I don't think Bryce Young is your guy, though. I don't. Bryce Young. I thought, wait, maybe this year's his year. I have some buddies of mine. I call him King Short. I used to call him King Young. I used to call him Tiny Bryce Young. Just names because he's short, even though he's taller than me. And he's just not there. He can't see past the O-line sometimes. He has a really good deep ball, but for some reason they don't do that a lot. This team is consistently inconsistent offensively. How can you beat up the Rams 28-24, I think? You beat the Packers when they had like all their players, and then you lose to the Saints twice. And you score like 27 points in those 2 games combined. I don't get it. Your team can look so good and look so bad sometimes. You had a 3-game span where Rico Dowdle was the best running back in the league. And then after that, you're like, we're going to bring Chuba Hubbard back as the number 1. And then your team kind of just slowly just went back to the way it was before, where there's no explosive plays. You guys struggle to move the ball. And then when you bring Rico Dowdle back in, he just doesn't look that good anymore. This team was very inconsistent. I do think you have the right head coach, though. I think he is a very good head coach, because if you could make Bryce Young look capable to play the quarterback position, you are a good head coach. That sounds very mean to King Young, but to King Short. But that's just the truth. I don't think he's really that good of a quarterback. And you put all this stock into him. You trade all these picks for him, and it hasn't worked out through 3 years. I can't say that you guys didn't try with him, because you guys did. You put 3 years of your time into him. I get it. You made it to the playoffs, but you're probably going to be a first-round exit against the Rams. So, yeah, if I'm a Carolina fan, this was a good year, though. You had a good season. I just think there are some pieces that you need to improve, and I think the main improvement you need is a new quarterback. All right. On to the Minnesota Vikings. This is the team that had a quarterback last year. You had Sam Darnold, who played like an MVP until the last game of the season. And this year you decide, we're going to go with J.J. McCarthy, and he turns out to be a meme in the NFL. Like if your favorite team's quarterback had one bad game, they turned you into 9 because J.J. McCarthy said, "I have an alter ego, guys. I am 9 when I'm on that field." No, please don't do that again, dude. If I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan, you just made your starting quarterback a joke to the league because he called himself 9 and then played like absolute dog shit the rest of the season. And what sucks is that this team would have been good if they had at least one good quarterback. I think you had Max Brosmer, where everyone was like, this guy might be Brock Purdy, guys. Brock Purdy storyline, crazy. Played at Minnesota. Minnesota Vikings fans love him. He's amazing in Minnesota. He may have literally been the worst quarterback I've ever seen outside of Nathan Peterman for that one half. That's how bad you were. You can't, you know what I mean? You shouldn't be compared to Nathan Peterman ever if you're a quarterback. You brought Carson Wentz in. Carson Wentz wasn't even serviceable, but the team had bad games. They played the Browns, so of course you're going to win that game just because your defense is good enough to win. The defense itself was good enough to win games. The quarterback play was so bad. The quarterback play was so bad. Justin Jefferson got 1,000 yards in the last game of the season. This is the guy that throughout his whole career was constantly being like, all right, chalk him up for 1,500 yards and 110 receptions. You couldn't even give him the fucking ball all season. He struggled to get to 1,000 yards. You turned him into Mike Evans, where it's like, hey, the streak of 1,000 is still there. He got 1,002 yards. That's what you turned him into. This guy's supposed to be always top 5 in receiving yards because he is the best receiver in the league, and somehow the quarterbacks aren't able to throw it to him. Your team should be a whole lot better, especially when you have Brian Flores as your defensive coordinator, and you have Kevin O'Connell as your head coach. He's a fucking good coach, and he couldn't coach up 9 to be a good quarterback. I don't understand it. 9, I get it, it's his first season, but J.J. McCarthy was just not a good quarterback. He has bad mechanics, doesn't really have much of an arm. I don't know. He wasn't... The thing is, at Michigan, he just handed the ball off. It wasn't like he was making great plays. He was handing the ball off to win the championship. I don't know. You give him one more year, though, just because he was dinged up. That's another problem. He's always injured. So give him one more year, obviously. Kevin O'Connell is going nowhere. He's not the problem. You need a quarterback. And you got to figure that shit out. And the other team that has to figure that shit out is the Detroit Lions. I thought they weren't going to be the same team they were last year. Obviously, losing Ben Johnson is a huge thing. We'll talk about that with Chicago. But losing Ben Johnson, you weren't going to be 15-2. You're going to be like 11-6, and your offense was going to have a little bit of a drop-off. But holy shit, you had a really big fall-off, dude. Downhill. I mean, you guys were just... I think at some point in the middle of the season, you guys were like constantly... You never went on a winning streak. At one point, you were like win one, lose one, win one, lose one. Which is crazy because the Lions last year lost 2 games in the regular season. Like, there was a quote by Dan Campbell after the Packers game on Thanksgiving where he was like, that may have been it for this team. And he was right. That was it for the team. They lost 3 straight. You lost to Max Brosmer on Christmas. Merry Christmas, guys. You lost to Max Brosmer. And, Jared Goff fell down in that game. He had 5 turnovers. And it was just a season where he's like, Amon-Ra didn't even fucking look like Amon-Ra. And Amon-Ra should be a top 5 receiver. And there was a stat line going against the Chiefs where it's like, when he's able to catch the ball, he was targeted 162 times. He had like 140 times where the ball touched his hands, and he caught all of them. I can't tell you how many times I saw him drop the ball this year, when he's known for having the most sure hands in this of the league. It made no sense seeing him drop the ball, especially in big time moments. This was a team that don't even get me on the defense. So that defense is atrocious. They allowed the Steelers to have like 250 rushing yards. The Steelers don't even have a good running game. I don't know how you allow 250 rushing yards. It's literally just Aiden Hutchinson and friends on the defense. And offensively, it's just like they're probably going to get rid of David Montgomery. I shouldn't say get rid. He's going to go somewhere else. Jared Goff was really good with the first half of the season, but in the second half, you just noticed a small decline every other week. It was just the Detroit Lions. What really makes me mad is I really like the story of the Detroit Lions. They're a good story to me, where it's like the team's been dog shit basically my whole life. They trade their best player in the decade, Matthew Stafford, for Jared Goff, a guy who the Rams gave up on, and he showed that he could come back and that he is a good quarterback. This team built themselves ground up, grit. Dan Campbell is the man in Detroit, dude. And it just really sucks that the furthest you went was being up 27-0, I believe, against the Niners, and then blowing it. That's your peak. And it sucks. You're going to have to, I don't say rebuild, but you're going to have to retool for next season. When it comes to the Green Bay Packers, you guys, after trading for Micah Parsons, everyone was like, this is a playoff team. This is a Super Bowl team. This is a team that's going to contend for the Super Bowl. You have Matt LaFleur, who's he's a great coordinator. He's a great head coach. Great scheme guy. But he sure as hell, he likes to run the inside zone too many times, And Jordan Love, once again, another season where it's like, I'm not going to be very good until Toyotathon. But he got hurt during Toyotathon. That never happens. And then the problem is, Malik Willis probably played better than him when he was on the field. Your defense got no pressure after the Micah Parsons injury. Get well soon, Micah Parsons. But your team, I don't know. Your team lost to the Browns after dominating the first two games. That probably should have told me enough about your season that you guys are going to be able to lose these games that you probably shouldn't be. But overall, I mean, you have pieces. You drafted what I think Michael Gordon. I think his name is first round pick for you guys, and he got 0 receiving touchdowns as a receiver. Jameis Winston got a fucking receiving touchdown. He plays quarterback. And it's just, I don't know. You guys have too many number 2 receivers, but you guys don't have a single number 1 receiver. Jordan Love is very inconsistent. The whole talk of him is like, is he going to be more Brett Favre with the gunslinger? Or is he going to be more Aaron Rodgers where he's like precise and just like a perfect quarterback? He's more Brett Favre with the gunslinging, but he is like a Timu version of Brett Favre. It's just bad. I don't want to say give up on him because he is still a good quarterback, and obviously you guys have been able to make the playoffs. It's just that, I don't know, you saw Malik Willis being able to do more with the offense that was given to him. Josh Jacobs. Don't even get me started on Josh Jacobs. I mean, what does he even do? You're like, what does he even do? Like, my friend has him on fantasy, and he texts me every week being like, who the fuck, what does Josh Jacobs do? Because last year he was phenomenal. Coming off a season where before that with the Raiders, where they gave up on him. They're like, you can have him, Packers. And he was great last season with the Packers. And this year, injuries obviously hurt him a little bit. He was constantly questionable. But it just kind of sucks just because you just wasted a season with Micah Parsons, and now Micah Parsons is hurt. I don't know. You guys should have been better than 9-7-1. Going next, we have the division leaders. The Chicago Bears, who got the 2nd seed, Ben Johnson may just be the second most safe person in all of Chicago behind Derrick Rose. This motherfucker can go to O Block and be like, this guy he's got a gang of guys that will protect him. You know, he's the most safe man in all of Illinois. Is that even in fucking Chicago? Is Chicago in Illinois? I don't know. I'm not smart. But he's done miracles on me. Like, that's how great he is. He's literally, the crime rate since he's been on the Bears, record low. It's never been lower before. No one even died this whole year, they said. That's crazy. How they got Ben Johnson and no one died this year. That's how great he was. Caleb Williams, very close to 4,000 passing yards. Could have been the first player in Bears history to ever do that. You've been in the league for fucking 100 years and you still have a 4,000 yard passer. He broke the record this year, and I thought he played much better than he did last year. Still had his struggles. He's very much one of those guys that makes the hard throws look very easy, but makes the easy throws look very hard. He doesn't really have a lot of touch in his ball. He just fucking zooms it in, which if it's a check down, you don't need to zoom the ball to fucking DeAndre Swift, a running back. Just touch pass a little bit, The defense, historic turnover team. I think they had like 33 turnovers this season, around there. Which is crazy because the defense isn't really a great defense. They just get a lot of turnovers. Which is a weird thing because you saw this is Ben Johnson. He's an offensive-minded head coach. And the defense is getting so many turnovers. And then you have Aaron Glenn with the Jets get 0 interceptions when he's a defensive-minded guy. The Bears really impressed me this year, though. Ben Johnson just showed that, hey, I'm one of the best coaches in the league. You already knew he was going to be that, but he proved it this year. He's going to be in the running for Coach of the Year, without a doubt. And this is a Bears team that is probably going to be in the divisional round, beating the Packers in the wild card, just because I don't even know if Jordan Love's going to play next week against the Bears. Congrats to Chicago. There's no crime anymore because of Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson may be Jesus over there. He may have, they may have just, he's God over there. I don't understand it. He's the safest man in all of Chicago behind Derrick Rose. And if he gets them to the championship game or even the Super Bowl, he may be even more safe than Derrick Rose. All right. We have the New York Giants, 4-13. You fired Brian Dable, I think, in week 5 or 6, which is a crazy thing to do because he fell in love with Jackson Dart. And really, NFL fans fell in love with the CTE boys. We had a little white boy summer in October when it came to watching Cam Scatterbo and Jackson Dart. Cam Scatterbo just literally running through a wall when there was no need to do that. I think he might have CTE at 22, which is insane. It's his first season, he's already losing his mind. And then Jackson Dart doesn't know to slide. I don't understand it. He wants to get hit. I think somehow Cam Scatterbo transmitted his CTE to Jackson Dart. To where it's like, hey man, we have the first down, you can get the first down and slide. Jackson Dart, slide after the first down. And he just fucking starts trucking guys who are massive compared to him. And then next thing you know, he's in the fucking blue tent. It's crazy. Yeah, you can't fire Brian Dable, especially when he's the reason you have Jackson Dart, because he fell in love with him as a prospect, fell in love with him as soon as he started, basically, because he hates Russell Wilson. He despises Russell Wilson. I don't know why, but he just does. Watching the Giants for the first 8 weeks is really fun, though. And that's something I can't say most of the time. They were a fun team. They would lose the game. But it'd just be fun watching Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo just dance after a touchdown. Just fucking post-game conference. Just fucking headbutt each other for no reason. That's your own teammate, dude. You don't need to fucking headbutt each other. it was fun watching them. They're not a good football team. They went 4-13. And then we had a little sexy Dexy dance being really popular this season. This was just a popular team that went 4-13. Holy shit, my dogs are fucking shit up, dude. It was just a popular team. I'll be right back. I gotta get these dogs situated. What are you guys doing? Sorry about that. But yeah, this was just a fun team. Next year, they probably will be even more fun because they might actually be good next year. They probably won't. The New York Giants just being good next year for the New York Giants is being 6-11. Speaking of a team that probably should be better next year, the Washington Commanders. Now, I may have grown old on this team, and that's because they are. You know, they made it to the championship game last year. They got dominated, but they made it there. And I think they literally got the last good year of all of their players. Because this year, outside of Bobby Wagner, the team would look really old. And then with Jaden Daniels getting hurt, that really sucked. Because he was hurt basically all season. Constant nagging injuries. And when he was playing, he didn't look as good. You know? There's something about him didn't look right. And he was gone for most of the season. So then you have Marcus Mariota. And he's Marcus Mariota. No offense to Marcus Mariota. But he's not a starting caliber quarterback. He is a backup. And you saw that some guys were backups and they proved that, hey, I could be a starting quarterback. We'll get to that team because we know who we're talking about. But this was just... And then you had Josh Johnson starting last game of the season. He won. But it was just like, this team should be a whole lot better than what they are. But then you realize everyone's old. You know? The team last year was the oldest team in the league, I think. And they got even older this year. This team needs to regroup, retool, get younger guys. They need a really good draft class this season. They need a really good draft. Which it kind of sucks because this draft class isn't really that good. But they got to figure something out. They got to find ways to go back to being in the playoffs just like last year. Another thing with these quarterbacks, though, after this sophomore slump really happened, except when it comes to like C.J. Stroud and Jaden Daniels, when they had like legendary rookie years, the next year was really bad. Let's talk about a team that was really bad when it comes to the offense. Fuck, I forgot we're on the Dallas Cowboys. Never mind. You guys heard nothing. You heard nothing. Their defense is really bad, though. All right. Brian Schottenheimer. I fucked that shit up, dude. I'm sorry, guys. Brian Schottenheimer and the offense. Phenomenal. You had Dak Prescott with 4,500 passing yards. Javonte Williams was really good. You had CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens each get 1,000 yards. Really good. But you can't have everything, Dallas Cowboys fans. You can't have everything. This was not, in fact, your year. I'm sorry, guys. The defense is really bad. It was bad with Micah Parsons last year. So imagine you take him out. And it went exactly how you thought it was going to go. I thought going into the year, Dallas Cowboys are going to get 30 a game. But they're also going to allow 30 a game. They're basically the Cincinnati Bengals, if you think about it. Great offense, shit defense. There's not much else to say about the Cowboys other than that. Doesn't matter how many points you score, your defense will allow one more. That's really all I have to say about them. Brian Schottenheimer is a good head coach. I do think he can work out. You just need the defense to help him out because he doesn't do defense. He does offense. And you saw the offense was pretty good under him. All right, now I can see that now I can do that now. Now I can say, speaking of bad offense, Philadelphia Eagles, you went 11-6, you're the third seed, and you don't know who you are offensively. I'm going to start off with the good before. The defense, phenomenal. They scare me a lot in the playoffs because no matter how bad the offense can be, the defense is always going to be really good. Doesn't really matter what happens, the defense will be a good defense. Jalen Carter's phenomenal. Cooper DeJean's really good. Quinyon Mitchell's really good. It's just a really good team. Zach Braun's really good. That defense is elite, one of the best in the league. We all knew that going into the year, but something we didn't really know going into the year was just Saquon Barkley, there's a stat like after every single like running back that got 2,000 yards, they usually have a really bad season the next year, just because they were used so much when they got 2,000 yards. They cut his usage down by a little bit. Saquon Barkley did, which meant that you need Jalen Hurts to perform well, and Jalen Hurts was not able to do that. Jalen Hurts is only good at doing 2 throws: the go ball and the out route. That's it. That's all he can do. He's a quarterback that does one read, and if his read isn't there, he's scrambling to the right and hoping that Dallas Goedert's there, and if not, he's gonna run for 4 yards. Watching the Eagles really pisses me off, just because this whole season I'm like, hey, if they figure out who they are, they're gonna be the best team in the NFL. Hey, if they figure out their offense, they're gonna be the best team in the NFL. We're 17 games in, and they weren't able to figure it out, which makes it hard for me when it comes to picking them as a playoff team. Because I'm like, if they figure out who they are, If they figure out who they are, they're going to be the best team in the NFL. They haven't done that, though. So, if they're a team that, if I'm the Eagles fans, E-G-L-E-S. You guys are fucking stupid, these Eagles fans. Philadelphia's rough. You mean to tell me you guys fucking put a statue of Rocky Balboa before fucking Joe Frazier? He actually won the fucking award. He won the belt. God damn. They're fucking stupid. But yeah, I mean, Jalen Hurts just can't read defenses the way he was in 2022 when he first made the Super Bowl. And I was a guy who a few years ago was like, Jalen Hurts is top 5. But over the last 2 seasons, he showed me that he may be a middle-of-the-pack quarterback. He may be closer to 16 than he is 5. He may be 16. You know what I mean? No diddy. But the Eagles just, if they figure out who they are, they're going to win the Super Bowl probably. The problem is they just haven't been able to do that. All right, next we have the Arizona Cardinals. Went 3-14. They had this whole Kyler Murray versus Jacoby Brissett, Kyler Murray was not doing well. Oh, they also just fired their head coach, Jonathan Gannon, earlier this morning. I think it was 2 hours ago they fired him. Which kind of sucks because I do think Jonathan Gannon, it wasn't his fault that the team was bad. Although he's a defensive-minded head coach. The defense was really bad. But I don't think he's a bad coordinator. They had this whole talk about Kyler Murray versus Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett was better than Kyler Murray, which is really sad when you paid your first overall pick so much money for him to be worse than the backup quarterback. They kind of were like, hey, Kyler Murray's hurt, guys. They told the NFL, Kyler Murray is not playing because he's hurt. It was really because they didn't think he was a starting quarterback for the team. They chose Jacoby Brissett. And Trey McBride really loved that they chose Jacoby Brissett because Jacoby Brissett just threw the ball at Trey McBride and Michael Williams. And that's it. Trey McBride was the best tight end this season stats-wise, and it wasn't relatively close. With that being said, Jacoby Brissett, I think, was 1-11 as a quarterback with a record. Because the defense is dog shit, the defense is really bad. We knew they were going to be bad. The Cardinals, everyone knew they were going to be a bad football team. You didn't know how bad they were going to be, though. You didn't think they were going to be 3-14 bad. I thought they were going to be like 5-12 bad. You got to figure this shit out with this quarterback, though, because you don't want Kyler Murray as a quarterback anymore, it seems. You just fired your head coach. You need to figure that out. The Cardinals are just stuck in mediocrity. They have to figure some shit out because it's looking really bad. All right, here we go. The San Francisco 49ers go 12-5 and get the 6th seed. I'm a fan of the 49ers, so bear warning, I will be harder on this team than I will any other team, just because I expect so much out of my favorite team. let's talk about going into the season. I thought we have a really easy schedule, but we're not a very good team. But since we have the easy schedule, we'll probably be the 7th seed and probably losing the first round. That was my thought going into the season. And then after week 1, you win, but you lose Brock Purdy. And that's when I was like, all right, you're going to be 10-7 still just because you have the easy schedule. But it's going to be a rough season for you guys. And the Niners are going to be gone in the first round. And then Mac Jones, Kyle Shanahan isn't the coach of the year discussion again. He basically is every year because that team is always hurt. That team is always hurt. This season they lost Brock Purdy for a few weeks with a turf toe. They lost Nick Bosa to torn ACL in, I believe, week 3. And then week 6, I believe, they lost Fred Warner to a dislocated ankle and fractured fibula, I believe. He says he's going to be back in the divisional round. If anything, he's back championship game if we make it there. But that just really... Ricky Pearsall is constantly injured. Trent Williams got hurt late in the season a little bit, dinged up. He's always been questionable to play. Brandon Ayuk is not on the team anymore. George Kittle dinged up for a few weeks. The one player that everyone thought was going to get hurt, CMC, is not hurt. I don't know. I think he might have stolen Nick Bosa's ACL. He stole Brock Purdy's toe. He stole Ricky Pearsall's gunshots, his gun wounds. He stole Trent Williams' swag somehow. I don't understand how that worked out. He stole Fred Warner's ankle just so he can have like a healthy season. And this team with Mac Jones, it wasn't as good as it is with Brock Purdy. But Mac Jones, to me, is the MVP of the 49ers season. Just because if he plays bad, we aren't in the playoffs. And since he played well enough to the point that there's going to be calls for trade options where we can get picks from getting Mac Jones just because he played that well this season, to the point that he could get traded and we get like a 4th or 5th round pick, which is huge for us because the Niners always get a good 4th round pick. They always know how to scout late in the draft, which is huge. Thank you so much, Mac Jones, for your season this year. Brock Purdy, when he came back from the injury of turf toe, he struggled a little bit. He had that bad game against the Panthers, Monday Night Football. He struggled for a few weeks, but then he figured it out at the Titans game. But everyone does figure it out against the Titans. He figured it out against the Titans. He had a hell of a game against both the Chicago Bears and against the Indianapolis Colts. Both primetime games, which meant the whole league saw that our offense was phenomenal in those 2 games. With that being said, finished 12-5, a little bit of a fucking letdown of a game, week 18 against the Seahawks. But the Seahawks are just a really good team. They might actually have the number 1 defense now just because of the fact that the Texans allowed 30 on Sunday, whereas the Niners only scored 3 against the Seattle Seahawks. So this was a team going into the year. I thought 10-7, 7 seed, not going to be a great team, but you get into the playoffs just because your record's easy. The record was really easy. When you look at the 5 losses this season, it's been shown that we were able to dominate against the defensive teams that have some of the worst defenses. I think the best defense that we were able to beat was the Seahawks back in week 1 when we only scored, I think we scored 20 that game. So even then the defense, the Seahawks were able to stop us a little bit. But when it comes to our wins this season, my family always hates when I bring this up just because they don't think I like the Niners. The defensive teams that we were able to beat this season were the Arizona Cardinals, 4th worst, the Titans, 5th worst, the Giants, 7th worst, the Bears, who are bottom 10, Colts bottom half, the Bucks bottom half, the Saints middle of the pack, the Panthers middle of the pack, the Browns middle of the pack, and then you were able to beat up on Mac Jones beat the Rams in a short week, and then we beat the Seahawks week 1. But in the games that we lost this season, we scored 3 points on the number one. So the Seahawks are the number 1 defense this season. We scored 3 points on them. We got dominated against the number 2 ranked Texans. We got dominated by the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are a top 10 defense. We lost to the Rams, who are a top 12 defense, and we lost to the Bucks that game. They ended up falling off, but they were a really good team going into that game. So this team, because of all the injuries they have offensively, and that's a really big problem, is the injuries this season again. They lost to all the good defenses and beat up on all the bad defenses that they played. Speaking of defense, the Niners defense, they're very much a bend don't break team, which when you're playing against bad teams, you were able to bend and not break. And I think the best defense that I saw out of the 49ers this season was Week 18 against the Seahawks. But for the most part, they were a team that was very much mid defensively. The reason why they're 12-5 is because the offense, despite all the injuries, are a very good defense against teams that don't have a good defense. But you saw against the teams that have a good defense, they were able to just dominate us. Problem with us defensively is we don't get any pressure to the quarterback. We have to do we have to use blitz packages in order to pressure the quarterback for the opposing team. And we have an O-line that isn't great. It's just serviceable. And whenever we face a defense that is able to get to the quarterback without needing 5 rushers, they are able to simply just outwill us in the trenches and win the game that way. They play the Eagles on Sunday at 1 o'clock. That's going to be a really good game. We'll see how that game goes. A team that's playing on Saturday in the playoffs, the Los Angeles Rams, going 12-5, getting the 5th seed, playing the Carolina Panthers at 1 o'clock on Saturday. Matthew Stafford had an MVP caliber season after the whole preseason talk being about how his back's hurt. He might not even play this year. He might start the season on IR. And instead, he just has his best season ever. Puka Nacua gets like 1,700 yards, and he misses 2 games. Devontae Adams is still the best red zone threat in the league. The defense has some concerns for me, though. The main concern is if they really struggle when it comes to the run game. They struggle to get those 2-yard plays. They struggle to stop the rush attack, which leads to a whole lot of big plays from the run game. The Rams defense, they struggle with that. They struggle with allowing the big runs. They allow a lot of explosive runs. The problem, which is crazy because like their averages isn't that bad. It's just that they allow the big runs, which you saw against the Atlanta Falcons, where Bijan Robinson just steamrolled them in the trenches. He was able to break all the tackles. A lot of big runs that game. At times they get beat by the pass. Like most of the games, except for the Falcons loss, they got beat in the pass game. So that leaves me some concerns. Obviously, they're playing the Panthers, but they lost the Panthers a few weeks ago because of the pass game from Bryce Young, which is crazy to say. But at the end of the day, they have probably a top 4 or 5 offense. Actually, let me check that for you guys. Let me see what their offense ranking was this season. Their offense this season was the best, they scored 30.5 points per game, best in the league. So their offense is able to win them some of these games. They do have a special teams problem. They have a really big special teams problem. That's the reason they lost to the Seahawks when they were up 30-14. You punt to Rashid Shaheed, who was a great pickup by the Seattle Seahawks. Punt return touchdown, 3 and out. Punt again, and Rashid Shaheed gets the Seahawks back in the red zone, which is basically how you lost that game. So you need to find a way to stop the run game, stop the big runs, stop the explosive plays in general, which is something that they kind of struggled this season. Because if you limit the explosive plays for a defense, Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, Devontae Adams, and Sean McVay are gonna win you these games. Because they've been able to do that for the last 3-4 seasons. If you stop the explosive plays, your offense for the Rams is gonna find ways to win the game. But going on to the number 1 seed, we have the Seattle Seahawks. Mike Macdonald, phenomenal head coach. Most of us knew he was gonna be a phenomenal head coach. Just seeing the stuff he did with the Ravens back in 2023 when they went, I think, like 15-2, got the 1 seed. It was the year when Lamar Jackson won the MVP because the team was very good, not because of his stats. But they complained that Josh Allen won it last year. Sam Darnold did struggle this season. He wasn't as great as he was last year with the Minnesota Vikings, which was expected, though, because you go from Kevin O'Connell to, I don't know who the coordinator, I think you go to defensive-minded head coaches, which is what I'm trying to say. You go from wanting an offense-first team with the Minnesota Vikings to a defense-first team with Mike Macdonald. And that defense was mighty fine. Technically, I think stats-wise, they were better than the Legion of Boom, which is crazy to say because it's the fucking Legion of Boom. They terrorized fucking offenses for like 3 years. And they had a better stats team than that. Obviously, they probably weren't better, but stats-wise, they were. They're a team that's very scary because of that defense. In the last video, I talked about how if C.J. Stroud and the Texans' offense just doesn't turn over the ball, they have a great shot of being in the championship game or even the Super Bowl. And that's the same thing when it comes to the Seahawks. If they don't turn over the ball, there's a great chance that they're going to be in Levi Stadium, which is something that Niners fans don't want. But it is just the truth. Because Mike Macdonald really is just a great head coach. He's one of the better head coaches of the league. The defense was number 1 this year. For most of the season, they were number 2. The Texans allowed 30 this week, so that's probably why. That's why they were able to get the number 1 ranked defense. But the Seahawks are just a team that's really good. I won't be surprised if they make it to Levi Stadium, just based off, not because of the offense. The offense had its problems. And it's just based off Sam Darnold turning the ball over. He turns the ball over too many times. But if he limits that, if we're talking about if, man, shout out Justin Herbert. If he doesn't turn over the ball like how he has this season in the postseason, the defense will be able to stop any team, I think, in the league. And there is a great shot. They probably are my favorite to win the Super Bowl just because the defense. And the offense isn't a scrub either. It's kind of like how the Broncos offense struggles a lot, but the defense is phenomenal. The Seahawks offense doesn't struggle a lot. The Seahawks offense is a pretty good offense. They're 3rd in the league with 28 points per game. They did struggle the last 5 or 6 weeks when it comes to scoring points. Keep that in mind. With that being said, they won all those games because the defense was just phenomenal. That is my recap of the 2025-2026 NFC regular season teams. Hope you have a great rest of your day. See you in the next video where I'll be ranking the 14 teams in the playoffs. Hopefully that'll be out tomorrow night. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.